I'm Lindsay Siegel-Slott, and I work with teens who are quiet, also known as introverted, and mainly what I want to do is help give them a voice so that when they are at home, when they're at school, if they go to college or vocational school or they go to work, I want to make sure that they have their voice. So essentially, I give quiet teens a voice. So if you're watching this, you must be a parent of a quiet teenager. And so you must be very worried. So this video is for you if you're worried that your teenager does not have any friends or doesn't have enough friends in your opinion, or maybe doesn't have the friends that you wish they had. Maybe they don't have the right friends in your opinion. They're not in the right crowd, or a variety of issues you may be having about their social life. Well, I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. There's a lot of parents that have this concern. And, the main thing to remember is as long as your teen is not harming him or herself and is not having, let's say, unhealthy life habits, like if they're not obese, if they're getting some exercise, if they're eating semi-healthy diet, they're probably okay. But what I want to do here is not talk about all that stuff. What I'm here to do is tell you exactly why your teen is in this type of social situation. So here's the deal. The reason why you probably are frustrated and you don't understand your teenager and their social life or lack of a social life is because you are probably more outgoing and extroverted and more confident than your teenager is. Your teenager is probably very quiet and introverted, and that doesn't mean that they can't have any friends or they can't ever have a lot of friends. It doesn't mean that. Being an introvert just means that that when you're an introvert, you feel drained when you're around a lot of people and noise and excess stimulation. For instance, a full day at high school. There's teachers talking to you. There's bells that ring at the beginning and the end of every class. There's crowded hallways where your kids have to get from one class to the next. There's a loud cafeteria where they eat lunch, usually, so they may not even be able to have any quiet time at lunch. So, they're bombarded with all this noise all the time, and so they feel drained. Now, that's one thing to keep in mind in case they come home and they don't feel like talking to you. But back to the social life issue. So, you may have lots of friends, and you may have always had a lot of friends, but that's because you are more extroverted, and that when you're extroverted, you need lots of friends around you. Why? Because friends tend to give you that excess noise and stimulation that help you thrive. So you thrive in that kind of environment where you're always around a lot of people, there's always things to do, you're moving around, you're going here, you're going there, you're going to a movie, you're going to a concert. Every minute has to be filled up with something because that really keeps you energized and alive. But if your teenager is introverted, it means that it has the opposite effect. So for them, too much of all those activities will make your teenager feel very drained. And so your teenager probably just doesn't need to have a lot of friends. That's one thing to keep in mind, is that you are different from your teenager. You're different in that sense. And you should not try to change him or her. You should accept him or her for who he or she is. Now, you still may be worried. You may think, well, still, how come she doesn't have more friends, or how come she doesn't have any friends? Well, another thing is sometimes introverted people have interests and talents that are considered quirky by a lot of mainstream people. And, so in his or her situation in high school right now, they might not have other people at their high school that share those quirky interests or talents. And so that's why, it's kind of a small world. High school, even if they go to a big high school with a couple thousand kids, it's still a relatively small world. And so what you want to do, if you want to help and accept your teenager, first of all, you have to accept who they are and that they are not exactly like you, that they are different. And what you want to do if you want to help your teenager is you may want to help find a college or a work program where it's small and there's more chance of one-on-one interaction with teachers or bosses, employers, whatever the plans are for your child after they finish high school. Is that you want them to flourish, and they're going to flourish if they're in a smaller environment where they'll get more attention. And then also you want to make sure that they will flourish socially, and the way you do that is you help them find colleges or again, work programs or trade schools with other kids that share their interests. So for instance, if your teenager is really, really into something like Minecraft or fan fiction or abstract art or anything like that you might think is weird, and maybe a lot of people think that's weird, but you can always find some sort of program or school or college that will have a club for that. You could find, when you're looking at colleges or trade schools or whatever your plans are for your teenager, or whatever they really want to do and show an interest and effort in doing, you want to make sure that you've got a list of schools or colleges or work programs that will have other people that share that interest. So that will have a fan fiction club, or they'll have a skateboarding club. If your teenager is just so into skateboarding and that's all they want to do, rather than kind of the temptation is to kind of like shrug it off, like, oh, my kid is so into skateboarding, it's such a waste of time, I don't know what he's going to do with that. Rather than take that stance, which will only push your teenager away from you, try to accept it and embrace it and help him find a college or a trade school where maybe they have a club, like a skateboarding club, and then he actually will make more friends, okay? Because if you put a teenager in the right environment, where there's people with common interests, common talents, as quirky as they seem to you, there's a club for everything. And you just need to find the right schools or work programs that will have that. And then your teenager actually will make more friends, not just online friends to chat with on the computer, which is probably what they're doing now, but they'll actually make more friends in person. Another thing to do is your teenager may have already tried this, but you could start a meetup. Help your teenager start a meetup group, meetup.com, where you find other people in your area and you name the meetup. You can name it anything, the skateboarding club or whatever you want, the skateboarding teenager club, whatever you want. And you may be surprised. You may find other people, that could be friends with your teenager that have common interests. And so, that's really what I would say. If you're that worried about your teenager not having friends, then the first thing you need to do is just accept him or her for who they are and find out. Say, hey, instead of saying, why don't you have more friends? Why don't you say, hey, it seems like we don't talk much anymore, and I feel like I don't know you anymore. I feel like I don't know you as well as I should. So I'm interested in what you've been up to lately. Do you write? Do you get in chat rooms? Like when you do all that stuff, what are you interested in? What kind of stuff do you talk about? What kind of movies do you like? What books do you like? What kind of articles do you read when you're always reading your smartphone? What are you reading? Like, what are you into? And you'll be surprised when you find that out. It could be something in politics that they're interested in. It could be some sort of social issues. It could be, special interest like skateboarding or fan fiction. It could be anything. And whatever your initial thoughts about that are, if they're negative, don't say it. Just take a deep breath and say, oh, okay, I didn't know you were into that. That's great. Tell me more. tell me more about it. Even if you kind of don't want to hear more, if you might not think that it's interesting, you may think it's weird, but if you say that to your teenager, you will lose them forever. You don't want to say, oh, that's weird. Why are you into that? Don't say that, okay? Because whenever you talk to your teenager, you need to try to come from a place of love and acceptance instead of judgment. And because judgment feels very insulting. I mean, what if somebody said to you, somebody that's supposed to love you and cherish you, said to you, when you got vulnerable and you revealed something about yourself that you weren't sure they wanted to hear, and if that person said, ew, you're into that? Like, what a waste of time. How would that make you feel? Not so great, right? So remember, you are the parent, so you are the person in their life who should be the most loving, the most accepting of anybody, because that's the foundation for them to go out into the real adult world and face all kinds of people, teachers, college professors, employers, bosses, coworkers. I mean, they're going to be bombarded with people that may judge them, but if they have the foundation of acceptance and love from you, then they're going to make it. If they don't have that from you, they could still make it, but it's going to be a lot harder. Okay, they're going to be a lot more successful if you make them feel accepted and loved, and if you even possibly help them. Say, oh, hey, I noticed, I don't see you much anymore. What have you been doing? What are you into? And then they tell you their quirky interest. And then you say, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Are there any people at your high school that are into that? Because that's like really interesting and really different. And they may say, no, not really. I can't really find anybody that likes, skateboarding as much as I do. And you say, oh, well, don't worry about it. We could just type in something on Meetup and start a Meetup group, and maybe you can find more people that are into skateboarding. And they'll be like, oh, okay. Or they may be like, oh, I already tried that. Teens are very computer savvy, so they may have already tried that. But then you can say, oh, well, have you started looking at colleges yet? Or have you looked into trade schools? Or, what would you like to do after high school? And then they'll tell you, and then you say, oh, okay, well, maybe we can find a college or trade school or whatever that has, or even a company. They just want to go right into the workforce. Maybe we can find companies or trade schools or colleges that have a club, a skateboarding club, and they'll be like, oh, okay, and just, start that conversation based on love, acceptance, and helping them. And the long-term result is, number one, they're going to feel closer to you, which is what you want. You don't want to lose them. You've invested lots of time, money, effort into raising your kids, and you love them, and you don't want to lose them. And number two, you're going to help them make more friends. In a non-judgmental way, in a helpful way. You're going to be like, oh, okay, let's find other people maybe that have that interest, and that would be really good for you. And they'll be like, yeah, that'd be cool to like meet other people that like skateboarding. Okay? So remember, love and acceptance come first, and then ask them what they want to do with their life and offer to help. Okay? Well, I hope this was helpful, so go ahead and leave me comments. Let me know how it goes. And until then, I'll see you next time.